Not sure if I'm crossing boundaries, but as a Jew, how do you feel, Joe, when criticism of Soros undermining our nation is attributed to anti-Semitism? It ticks me off. It ticks me off. Okay, it gets me very upset that people try to hide this. It's the same thing. It's the same. That's why I mentioned earlier that, like, I hate when people try to pretend that has anything to do with anti-Semitism. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. They're trying to, and they're trying to use my religion as a basis to try and shield themselves from duly warranted criticism. And that's a perversion of protections that minorities need. I'll tell you right now, there definitely is a ton of anti-Semitism out there, a ton of it. Now, I think that the wolf crying, the cry wolf, wolf, wolf all the time, particularly by the left, every time someone who's Jewish gets criticized, is asinine, and it's harmful to, because then, when there's actual legitimate anti-Semitism, it gets dismissed as just another wolf cry. And it's very, very aggravating. And it's not simply anti-Semitism. I'm answering this question. I'm addressing it in this context because you're asking me about, about this whole element. But I'll tell you right now, it bothers me. It gets me infuriated. It gets me really, really infuriated on a personal level, because I do know that there's real anti-Semitism out there. And fortunately, the levels of anti-Semitism that we see today are a minutia of what they were even when I was growing up. A tiny minutia of what they were. Really, really, relatively so insignificant. Do they exist? Definitely. Definitely. I'm not blind to the fact that there's genuine anti-Semitism. I'll tell you right now, sometimes I'll go into various people's streams, and I'll see in the chat, and some people, trust me, I'm sufficiently attuned to when it's humor versus when there's actual anti-Semitic rhetoric. And I see sometimes legitimate anti-Semitic rhetoric, and I just let it roll off my back. I'm like, all right, there's another loser. So like, I don't worry about that, and I don't consider that like any sort of like hate instance that, oh my gosh, we have to control it. I'm like, all right, you know what? Some idiots out there, and some of them are going to have voices, and they'll be watching various streams and stuff like that. And so what? Okay, big deal. Who cares? There are actual instances of people suffering from anti-Semitism, not because that what I deal with is not at all suffering from anti-Semitism. That's not anything. That's not anything that's worse than making fun of someone who's got like a big a big chin or lousy fashion sense. I mean, it's that's nothing. But like people like start screaming about that, and then when there's an actual instance of real anti-Semitism or real racism of any kind, everyone just tunes it out, because I would tune it out. I would tune it out also, because I'm like, oh, here's another case. Here's another person who's crying about this incident. It's terrible. It's really wrong. And these people who are constantly screaming wolf, they cause more anti-Semitism than someone like Kanye. That's my perspective on it. They cause more anti-Semitism because you build resentment. Because what ends up happening is people end up saying like, yeah, all these Jews are constantly, they're going to commit wrongs and then try to hide behind it by saying, you can't attack me because I'm Jewish. They make, I'm telling you right now, I can understand how they would make someone who's like doesn't know Jews and has no interaction with them resentful toward them. And that's what makes me angry towards these people who are constantly crying wolf. George Soros is a terrible, terrible human being. He's an evil, vile person. He's not a practicing Jew. He's not a cultural Jew. He's not any kind of Jew. He has Jewish DNA in him, who collaborated with Nazis to raid and enrich himself off of the blood and finances of Jews who were sent off to the gas chambers. He's a terrible human being. There's little difference in my mind between him and an actual Nazi. And the fact that he has Jewish DNA in him does nothing. It means it's meaningless to him, and that's what makes it meaningless to me. It is utterly meaningless to him. Instead, that's a classic example of perverting protections that are designed for minorities to basically hide behind your evil actions. It's awful. It's ugly. It's gross. It's disgusting. That's my take on it.